All right. We have had 2 weekends so far, both of which with African American led movies. One of them did really badly, and the other one did incredibly well. I'm talking about Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse and The Little Mermaid. Why Spider-Man was a success and The Little Mermaid wasn't. For context, I have seen both of these movies. And here's where I stand with their basis. I'm a huge comic book fan, and I love Spider-Man. And I started to fall in love with Miles Morales around the time the original Into the Spider-Verse movie came out. The Little Mermaid original film, I'm not the biggest fan of, per se. I do appreciate it as a film, but it isn't my favorite thing ever. So, obviously, I was a little more excited to go see Across the Spider-Verse than I was The Little Mermaid. I went and saw The Little Mermaid because I feel like I should see as many movies as I can as a critic. But I went and saw Across the Spider-Verse as both a critic and a fan. So, let's start with The Little Mermaid. I was going to make an honest review on both of these, but I don't feel like I need to make an honest review on The Little Mermaid because it's essentially the same film, just a little longer. A few scenes are cut out and a few things are done worse. Everybody is like, oh, The Little Mermaid is such a betrayal. It's so bad. This movie's fine. It's fine. It's not great. It has a ton of problems. But it's okay. Now, with that said, there were a few things that needed to be pointed out. The very first thing that is blatantly clear about The Little Mermaid and its status is that nobody asked for it. Back in April, I made a rant on the Walt Disney Company as a whole. I talked about how I found their production values cheap and lazy now. The Little Mermaid is definitely kind of one of those things. I think the movie wasn't done as best as it possibly could have. I feel like it was kind of thrown together at the last minute. A lot of the CGI is inconsistent. Jonah Howard King, who plays Prince Eric, doesn't have a good singing voice. And overall, it just feels a little kind of thrown together. But it has its moments. Halle Bailey as Ariel is pretty good. She's got a great singing voice. Sebastian was consistently funny throughout the movie, and I can't say no to Javier Bardem. But the rest of the movie was essentially just the original movie with a few updates here and there, some bad songs, and that's about it. There's not much else to it. However, to my not big surprise, it hasn't been doing very well at the box office. With a $250 million budget, it has only been able to make 191 domestically. That is not good. For those of you who don't know, a movie needs to make back its budget in order to be a successful movie. Worldwide, it's been alright, 332 million, but it just has not been performing really well, and it's going to lose the studio a ton of money. It didn't have a very good opening weekend. The Super Mario Brothers movie, in stark contrast, had the best animated opening weekend back in April. And that movie is still making money. It's the highest grossing movie of the year, and it's made over $1 billion. Yeah. I don't particularly have a definitive reason why The Little Mermaid hasn't been doing as well as Disney wanted it to, other than the fact that, people are getting really, really tired of the Disney live action remakes. Mulan is easily the worst one because it doesn't know what it wants to do. Now, this is not a new thing. The Disney live action remakes have been sort of hit and miss. I guess they never miss. Not. But they did do pretty well at the box office. The Jungle Book, which is actually my favorite of the live action remakes because it was the most different, made over 900 million, almost $1 billion. Beauty and the Beast, billion. Aladdin, billion. Lion King, billion. Nothing has been able to get to that level because Disney lost a ton of money due to the pandemic, as well as low streaming rates for their original movies, vis-a-vis Mulan, vis-a-vis Raya and the Last Dragon. Didn't ever end up watching it. So, it wasn't a good look for Disney. On the other hand, we have Sony Entertainment. My very, 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 very complicated relationship with Sony Pictures aside, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was one of my favorite films of 2018, was my favorite Spider-Man film of all time for a minute, and is easily one of the most comic book films ever. And I was excited for the sequel. I wanted it to come out last year. That was the original plan. But it ended up coming out very beginning of June. Not even a week ago at this point. So the movie's still out in theaters. I'm not going to be spoiling it for you guys, because you guys should go see it. It's awesome. Maybe I'll get an honest review out as soon as I can. But the clear difference I see in why Spider-Man was a success and The Little Mermaid wasn't comes down to a few factors. Here they are. The first factor is people are just tired of the remakes. Nobody cares about them. You don't really need to watch them because you can just go watch the original. They're very similar, except for Mulan and Alice in Wonderland. And they're just not good. The priority in regards to the Disney live-action remakes wasn't storytelling like Walt's original version was. It was purely to make money. Now you might be saying, well, every movie is made to make money. Yes, that's true, but there should be a passion behind it. A passion to make movies. We didn't get that with these films. Ever. The Little Mermaid is another one of them that just kind of adds to that. Into the Spider-Verse and now Across the Spider-Verse are a very rare form of comic book films that Sony actually tries on. Yeah. For some reason, their live-action comic book films and live-action franchise films have sucked. I mean, you have the Sony villain Spider-Man universe, whatever it's called. That is still sucking super hard. Morbius last year, losing Sony a ton of money. And Kraven the Hunter is a movie that I am choosing to boycott because it's going to be stupid and it's not going to understand anything. I'm not going to be watching the proposed Venom 3 either, most likely, or El Muerto, which is just Bane. I'm not going to be watching any of their live action stuff as much anymore because they're clearly incompetent. Like Gran Turismo. Like, what the hell is going on with that? Like, why are you making a movie based on a video game, based on a true story? That doesn't make any sense. Why not just call it the Gran Turismo story or something? Or just name it after something that the guy did with it, with the tag, with the subtitle, the Gran Turismo story. Not Gran Turismo. What is wrong with you? Then there's Sony Animation that's just sort of like, okay. I mean, I'm a huge sucker, actually, for Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the original, and the first two Hotel Transylvania films. But everything else is just kind of stupid. For example, you've got the most disastrous film ever in the form of the Emoji Movie. And that film is a film everyone agreed to despise back when it came out in 2017. It was a huge misstep from Sony Pictures Animation and Amy Pascal and the entire crew that worked on it. It was bad, and they knew it was bad, but they didn't try to make it seem like it was good. Everybody was kind of suspecting that Into the Spider-Verse would be cheap, but then all of a sudden, critics and audiences' minds were blown away when somehow Into the Spider-Verse was the most popular and most highly well-received comic book film of 2018. Well, not most popular, that would be Avengers Infinity War, but it was the most critically praised film in regards to comic books of 2018. And it took home an Oscar because of it. Best Animated Feature. And that comes down to two great men, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who worked on the Lego Movie, which didn't get an Oscar nomination for some reason. I don't know why, but that was stupid of them. I don't need to comment on that because that was over 10 years ago, almost. Almost 10 years ago, not over 10 years ago. Nearly a decade ago. Spider-Verse was the bee's knees, and it started out as a concept for a video game called Shattered Dimensions, which turned into a spin-off comic, which then turned into the movie, which then turned into a trilogy with Across the Spider-Verse, which just came out in June of this year, June 2nd, 2023. And it has done so well with the critics. Audiences are loving it. I was there during an opening weekend crowd. It was incredible. I recommend you go see that in IMAX as much as you can. Just spend as much money as you possibly can to go see Across the Spider-Verse in IMAX. It is so special. Like, it's worth it. It's worth the extra cost for better seats, for better discounts. Go see this movie in a movie theater. Do not wait for it to come out on digital. But what I see the Spider-Verse movies as comes down to my love for the comic book genre in general. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse are both films that feel like a comic book taken directly off the page, leaping onto the silver screen, and it is incredible. All the talent that goes into the animation, all of the voice work done by so many talented actors, Shamik Moore, Haley Steinfeld, Jake Johnston, Oscar Isaac, Mahershala Ali, Brian Tyree Henry, Jason Schwartzman, Leah Schreiber, John Mulaney, all of those cast members pouring their heart and soul into it. Compare that to the Disney live-action remakes, where the actors are certainly putting their heart and soul into it, except for Li Fei, or Yi, I don't know how you pronounce her name, the chick from Mulan, who's not a great person and did not try anything because the direction was so awful. But the studio doesn't want to try. Now, it does come to my attention that Sony does not treat the Spider-Verse films with as much respect because they believe that their live-action stuff is going to do more. So they give the creative freedom to the animation. But they don't realize how big of these movies have been and how, like, in comparison, their live-action stuff has been absolute crap. I'm calling it right now. Gran Turismo is probably going to bomb at the box office because Sony is incompetent. But these films are going to remain popular and easily their best films to date. Seriously, people are calling Across the Spider-Verse the best Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 2. And Spider-Man 2 is a very tough act to follow. And so is the first film, for that matter. When asked, I have a person I know who asked somebody what they thought of Across the Spider-Verse and if it was better than Into the Spider-Verse. They said it was impossible. But I know what the best one is. If you really want to find out, I will make an honest review on Across the Spider-Verse very, 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 very soon. But I feel like what I need to say has pretty much been said already. But allow me to recap. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse felt like a passion project. Fans waited for a sequel for 5 years since the original movie, myself included, who went to an opening weekend of the original film back when it first released in December of 2018. I feel like this wait was freaking worth it. I mean, seriously. Across the Spider-Verse is one of the best theater experiences I have ever had and is easily my favorite film of the year and my favorite comic book film in a very long time. It surprisingly beat out Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was great, by the way. Go check that one out too. Not great. It wasn't terrible like Quantumania. Quantumania sucked. But seriously, this is better than every single Phase 4 and 5 project in the MCU. Even though Spider-Man No Way Home was pretty freaking awesome, this is Spider-Man No Way Home on steroids. Like, honestly, you thought 3 Spider-Man on screen was great? Go watch the original Spider-Verse, where there were like 5 or 6. Yeah, that's too little for you. There are hundreds of Spider people on this. And then The Little Mermaid, a movie that is perfectly good on its own, didn't need the crappy straight-to-video sequels. It's just the same movie with the same story, very similar script. Like, a lot of the scenes are verbatim. It's not bad, but it's not original. Clearly, I'm more passionate for Spider-Man here, but my choice to watch a movie is clear. If given the option to watch 2 of the big summer movies of the lineup, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is definitely my top priority. And don't worry, this summer has a ton of movies on its belt. We've got Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We've got The Flash. We've got Transformers Rise of the Beasts, which comes out this Friday. And then you have movies like Oppenheimer, which I am going to see, Barbie, boycotting, Blue Beetle. Like, this summer has a pretty good lineup for movies, but Across the Spider-Verse easily beats them out and is easily one of the best theater experiences and one of the best films I have seen in a long time. Check that one out, and not the incompetent Little Mermaid remake, which I am this close to considering lowering a point from my 7.5 out of 10 score. Well, that is it. I will make a honest review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in the next few days. I want to wait a little bit until the spoiler embargo is sort of lifted, because there are a ton of spoilers. I'm gonna just wait a week until the movie's been released. So this weekend I will try to get it out. Same thing for Transformers Rise of the Beasts. I will be making honest reviews all summer, to the best of my ability. So with that all said and done, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.